Hi friends, welcome to Paula's Kitchen and More. I'm glad to have you with me today, especially the dessert lovers, because we are making a wonderful light springtime dessert, taking advantage of fresh raspberries. It is full on spring here in Vegas. I've got the windows open, breeze is blowing in, sun shining. I got my favorite springtime apron, which was a present from Cindy over in Maryland. I love this apron. It has a matching pot holder and mitt as well. And today I have found an amazing recipe never tried before in this gem of a cookbook. It is from Smucker's. Everybody has had Smucker's jams, jellies, peanut butters, ice cream toppings, you name it. It's one of the biggest companies in the world for those products. And this cookbook was actually done by them in honor of their 100th anniversary. It was published in 1997. I've had it probably for that long, but this recipe is one I've never tried. It's a chocolate raspberry cake, and I'm very intrigued by the few ingredients it has. Let's talk about those ingredients. So the cake itself is going to be made of a very small amount of flour, sugar. The star is going to be that Ghirardelli unsweetened chocolate. You might as well use the best unsweetened chocolate, right? We're going to have some eggs and butter and a little bit of water. We are going to then fill it or frost it with the red raspberry preserves from Smucker's, which is Dale's and my favorite. And then we're going to garnish it with fresh raspberries, and I'm going to melt some of those semi-sweet chocolate morsels and make some curls or whatever you call them to garnish the top of the cake. It looks really pretty in the cookbook. Let's see if we can achieve it as well. Let's get started. There is not a lot of prep to be done for this chocolate raspberry cake. It's pretty simple, actually. I have a 4-ounce package of the Ghirardelli chocolate. It calls for the whole entire thing. We're going to melt that. I'm going to separate these eggs in a minute. I need to cut my butter into small pieces. I have a 1/3 cup of flour, a 1/2 cup of sugar, and a little bit of water. That's it. Super simple. So we're going to be melting the butter in with the chocolate and some sugar. So the instructions say to cut these in just some smaller pieces so they melt more quickly. So I'm just going to do that. Calls for 1/2 cup of the butter. I'm an Ohio girl. I think you know that. So Smucker's is a hometown source of pride. They're from a little town in central Ohio called Orrville, which is like an hour and a half from where I grew up. And Dale and I, whenever we've been to Amish country in Ohio, which is quite often over the years, we always stop at Smucker's. They have an amazing flagship store just a couple miles down from the company headquarters, and they sell everything in there, all their products as well as home goods, and they have a little cafe, and it's really a really fun place to visit if you're ever in central Ohio in Amish country. Highly recommend it. Big fans of Smucker's and everything they stand for. They've really just done a great job with every product and their stewardship of their brand. Super job. All right, I'm gonna separate my eggs. I need the yolks first and I need the whites separate, so I'm gonna do that. I'll be right back. I have my oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and I have greased and lightly floured 2 9-inch cake pans. It calls for 8-inch. I don't have 8s, I have 9s. It just means my cake's going to be a little thinner perhaps, but I'm sure it'll work fine. I have put my 4 ounces of the unsweet chocolate in a saucepan, and I'm going to turn the fire on low, and I'm going to add 1/4 cup of water. And my instructions tell me to stir this constantly while the unsweet chocolate melts. Now, this is interesting, stirring constantly with these squares. Well, hey, that didn't take long. Look at this in the overhead. Let me quickly put my butter in there because that went dry in no time. Drop the butter in and we'll get that melting into our chocolate. We got some sizzle going on here. Notice how the butter just smoothed out that chocolate. Ooh, that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? All right, folks, flame off on that. And my 1/2 cup sugar gets stirred in. Looking wonderful. Now, I did separate my 3 eggs earlier, so the yolks are going to go in this, and it says in the instructions that I need to cool this a little bit first, and then I actually need to beat in the yolks. So let me set this aside to cool for a few minutes, and we will be back to continue our cake prep. I cooled my chocolate butter sugar mixture for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I put it in the big mixing bowl where we're going to finish our cake batter. So the next instructions say to add the egg yolks and beat well after each addition, which I take it to mean one at a time. So they're all combined in this same bowl, so I'm using a little scoop, and I'm just going to try to grab one at a time. And I'm just going to use my little hand mixer and mix this with my chocolate and my butter. What a beautiful thing that is. So I'm going to clean off my beaters, and we're going to add that 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm going to stir that in by hand. All right, so 1/3 cup of flour is going to go in here, and I'm just going to use my spurtle to stir that by hand. Can you believe a cake that only calls for 1/3 cup of flour? You have to ask yourself, okay, so what is the substance of the cake? It's going to be the egg whites. So as soon as I get this stirred up, I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to beat the egg whites until they're fairly stiff and fold them into the chocolate mixture. All right, folks, you get the idea. In the cake pans they go. Cake is out of the oven. The cake layers were quite thin by the time I got them in there, so they actually were done in about 14 minutes. I'm glad I kept an eye on them. I did the toothpick test. So I am going to put them over on racks to cool for a while before we do our red raspberry filling. But there is one more step for the garnish that we're going to work on now. So let me just get these moved over and cooling for a moment. And I will grab a cookie sheet. So I had taken a couple of ounces of the semi-sweet chocolate morsels, just Nestle's Toll House, and I just melted them in my microwave just a moment ago. So I've never done this before, but we're going to put them on a cookie sheet while they're hot and melted and spread them into a thin layer as best we can. It goes in the fridge until it gets hardened, and then we're going to try to peel these off the cookie sheet in slivers or curls or whatever they'll do. Let's see, huh? So I'm just going to spread this around a little bit on the cookie sheet, and then while our cake is cooling, I'm going to put this in my refrigerator. That's about as good as we can do. So in the fridge it's going to go, and then we will try the peel test in a few moments. All right, let's wrap this up. So I have my chocolate shavings I just pulled out of the fridge. Let's see how this goes. And honestly, I just told cameraman Dale, I don't care if they don't come out in curls and shavings. They're going on the cake anyway. So they say you're supposed to do this at a 45-degree angle, just scrape, and he laughs. All right, that's kind of interesting. If you're looking at, I'm not sure if I'm catching it all, but they're okay. They're shavings. I'll take them. All right, now I'll pull over my cake. Yes, it's quite thin. Let's call this a tort. So this is my cake bottom. They're cooled. I'm going to turn the fire on a small saucepan, and I'm just going to warm up half a cup of the raspberry preserves, the Smucker's raspberry preserves, and that is going to be our filling and topping on the cake. There's no icing per se. While this is warming up, let me just say one other thing with regard to Paula's Kitchen and More. We started this at the beginning of March, and we kind of committed to kicking it off by doing weekly updates, which we have been up until the past couple of weeks, but Couple things. Our attention always has to be on our main channel, especially because that's where we get the most views and so on. This channel is slow to get started, and we cannot keep up with a weekly cadence. So we're going to aim for every other week going forward on Paula's Kitchen and More. I know some of you have been asking when you don't see it on Wednesday, so I thought I would just mention that. So while I was blathering, I think this is about ready. Let me show it to you in the overhead. See how it just thinned out and it just becomes now spreading consistency. So I'm just going to pour part of it on this cake, and honestly I think I can just as easily spread it with a wooden spoon as anything else. Dale tells me it reminds him of his old Canada home, all the fresh raspberries that grow up there. All right, I think I want to save the rest for the top. So let me set this down for a moment. Let me grab the top. Put that on. Like I said, not what you call a thick cake, but I'll tell you what, it smells lovely. And I'm really intrigued to taste it with the egg whites and the Ghirardelli chocolate. All right, let me clean my pan out. And spread this around. All right, folks, tell me that doesn't look pretty. Let me go get my chocolates. And let's see if we can make something happen. Oh, you know what? It gets soft very quickly. But that's okay. They're still, I can still sort of spread them around. In the picture, I'll show you the picture that was in the cookbook. They're kind of in a sunburst pattern, but mine didn't come out that pretty. It's okay. They actually, wow, they actually got soft very, very fast. And I might, before I put more of them on, I might actually put them back in the fridge and harden them up. All right, yeah, let me do that. I'll finish that up and we'll do the final reveal. It is tasting time. I cut myself a wedge of the cake. I have a couple raspberries for garnish. I made a cup of tea. Life is good. All right, I have no idea what to expect out of this cake, so let's jump right in. Let's try it. It's like a brownie. It's very much like a brownie. I expected lightness because of the egg whites, and in fact it is very light. I also was concerned about whether it be sweet enough because of the unsweetened chocolate. In fact, it's really, really good. I wish you could see a close-up of this because it's like a dense brownie, except it's not super dense. One more bite. You get the raspberry seeds in there because, of course, of the preserves. Wow. Totally unexpected. Totally delicious. I can easily eat this whole thing because it's not really heavy. The chocolate flavor is intense and delicious. I will definitely make this again. Wow. I can't wait for Dale to try this. I really like it. I'll tell you what. I will definitely be doing more recipes out of that Smucker's book because it's not only desserts. There are some amazing main dishes that use things like apricot preserves and stuff like that, which got my mouth watering even thinking about. And the next time I bake, a little teaser for you, I'm going back to my roots in Ohio and we are going to make something from Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams. Jenny wrote a cookbook some years back and we have a copy of that cookbook. I'll be opening that up next time we bake on Paula's Kitchen and More. Thank you so much for being with me. Try this simple chocolate raspberry cake. I'll put the description or the recipe in the description box and come back and visit me again. I love having you here. Bye, everybody.